right, greetings, church family. We are welcome to a special edition of our shout out. Pastor Victor and I are here with a very special guest who many of you may remember from our Good Friday Seven Last Words of Jesus worship service. I think it was in 2019.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're here with Father Amde Hamilton. He's an esteemed treasurer of Watts. I've known him since I was a kid growing up in Watts. He's an author, a poet, and an ordained minister in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. I hope I got that right. He's one of the founding members of the Watts Prophets, a product of the Watts Writers Workshop. He's wise and compassionate, and he remembers everything there is to remember about Watts. And he's the author of a brand new book of poetry called Ebony Creole Whispers, which can be bought on Etsy and Amazon. We got our copies.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, especially when I see all of you wonderful people.
Thank you. Thank you. Pastor Victor, if you have questions, jump in. I have a couple that I'll start with, but whenever you want to jump in with your questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how did you become a Watts prophet?
Well, that was quite a journey. I think I was breeded to be that.
Mm-hmm.
I come from the Louisiana Creoles, and our grandmothers understood that they were breeded into existence, and they never forgot that amongst my culture and tradition and history. And they were quite clever about picking certain children for certain things when I was a boy 83 years ago. And I happened to be one of those children that were kind of chosen. They would come and get me from amongst 30 other grandchildren.
Wow.
They would make everybody mad, but they didn't care because it was like I was being trained for something. My grandmother's intention was that I become a Catholic priest. At that time, that was a very revolutionary act, and my grandmother and my family were very revolutionary, particularly my grandmother. And so I was kind of, without my knowledge, breeded in this direction. Creoles had a long history of that. We were the first ones to publish an anthology of poetry of African Americans. We were the first ones in 1860, not 1960, that started asking for our civil rights. We asked to vote right after 1860. And we continued on. We did many, many different things. So one thing was, even on the plantations that Creoles had, which wasn't that many, but there was a few, they cultivated the arts. And so that would, like the other guy in the group, his mother happened to be one of those artists, one of those writers. In Louisiana, they actually, amongst the Creoles, they had schools where they taught militant poets. These poets published in French, and their poetry was published in France. But amongst the African Americans in the Creole community, we did it oral, like the Watts Prophets did. So, like I'm saying, it was kind of breeded into me. That's why the arts were breeded into our tradition. That's why you have a Beyonce at the top of the hill. That's why you had a Prince at the top of the hill. That's why you had a Louis Armstrong at the top of the hill. That's why you can look all over in different places and find us at the top of the hill. Because it was quite an experience to be a Creole. To be one is to be not cared about by the white folks and the black ones either. So we chose excellence and continued on in our own tradition, our own language, our own history, and our own culture, and our own food, and our own religions. That's what made us, all of that. And so that's when you talk about the spiritual journey that I went on, that I didn't understand until about 80, clearly, that I had been bred to do what I'm doing. Now, if you want the chronological history of it, I happened to end up in an insane asylum for drugs and prison. And when I got out, I was stumbling around Watts looking for something to do, and probably was going to end up another back to drugs. But I was trying real hard to get myself together and to rehabilitate myself. So we used to go to a program on 103rd. They had a lot of poverty programs down there. And they had one called CETA, the CETA program.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to CETA trying to get a job. And I would go there each day in the mornings to see if there was any jobs on the board. And so one day I had a habit. I had never noticed I had this habit. But whenever I would sit down any place, I would just scribble on paper, and when I'd get up to leave, I'd throw it away. So I'd be sitting there each morning waiting on a job, looking for a job. And this writer by the name of Odie Hawkins, he has about 30 novels now. He used to teach at the Watts Writers Workshop. And so one day I was sitting on the steps and he tapped me on the shoulder. And he said, "Hey man, you a writer?" And I said, "No, man, I'm not no writer." I said, "I don't know nothing about English at all." He said, "Would you go to a workshop with me?" So I said, "Yeah, man." I said, "Will they having something to eat there?" Because actually I was hungry, I was broke and everything. And so he said, "Yeah, man, I'll pick you up here right at 7 o'clock. So he picked me up and took me to the Watts Writers Workshop. And I walked in and there was about 10 or 15 artists sitting in a circle. And so he set me in the circle and they all started reading their poetry and critiquing it, and reading it and critiquing it. And finally it got to me. And they said, "Sir, what are you gonna read?" I said, "I'm not here to read anything. I don't have anything to read." I said, "I'm not a writer. Guy here just asked me to come in here and come to this class." And the guy who brought me reached in his notebook and pulled out a stack of those little papers I'd been throwing in the trash can every time I would leave. And he said, "Read this to him, man." I didn't even know what it was. And when I read it to him, I had never been complimented for anything, but everybody in the room was blown away. And that night a poet was born. And that's how I became a Watts prophet. That was the beginning of it. How I became, like you say, we're the fathers of the art form rap. Well, rap was a colloquial word that we used ever since I was 5 years old. I remember that word.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that guy sure can rap. Let me go rap to that girl. It only means to talk.
Mm-hmm.
But you were elevated in the Black community when I was a kid, like no more in Africa, where you elevated if you speak well. Well, I had a gift for gab. So you could say I could rap. And I'd always been rapping, and I started rapping, and that's why I call the art form when we started. Rapping Black in a White World. Dee Dee's poem was Black in a White World. We put the word rapping on it because that's what we were doing. So that's it, y'all. That's how I started as a poet. If you got any questions, we can go on from there.
Well, Father Amde, so you were able to come to the church Wow, it's 3 years ago now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. When we had the service, and one way that advice and that wisdom comes is through the art, through your art and the art of many. And so that year service, we had music from Sade, but this year we're kind of going back to our roots when we first did the Good Friday service, exploring the art and the music of Marvin Gaye, and in particular the What's Going On album. So I'm curious for you, what was your impression of that album, that work, when you first heard it, when it came out? And then two, is there wisdom there for the generations today that you think we can glean?
Marvin Gaye was my friend. How I met Marvin Gaye, we wrote a tribute to Quincy Jones, and it was performed for the Los Angeles Brotherhood Crusade. I was part of that writing. And we performed at the Shrine Auditorium. And so Richard, we were known for writing beautiful, poetic introductions. If you wanted something hip said for you, get the Watts Prophets. They'll say it so hip, you blow your mind. So we wrote the introduction, Richard wrote it. And we did. And the last line that the shrine was full, when we got ready to walk, Richard said, "And this is Marvin Gaye." And we started walking off stage, and Marvin walked past us going on stage. He got to the microphone, then he turned around and came back behind stage, and all the people were just hollering and stuff. And the producer was hollering, "Get back up on stage, get back up." He came, "No, hold up." He said, he came to us. He said, "Who are you niggas, man?" He said, "I ain't never been introduced like this. Who are y'all? I need y'all number now." And the people was hollering, "Get back out on stage." And finally he turned, "I man, y'all stay right back here. I want to," and then he went out on stage, and that's how I met Marvin Gaye. And his album, you couldn't miss it. If you there's something was wrong with you. And today it's played all over the world at some time or another. And it had so much. He was so honest, and that's what makes a great album, is the truth. And when he talked about his addiction, flying high, and all that, he was really like that. He was really kind of a sad dude, happy but sad. He always was melancholy when I would deal with him. And I remember he was writing that, his wife told me he was writing that album, Trouble Man. And she said he used to bring he was into bringing bums home. And he brought this bum home one day, and then the wife said all the time the bum would go sit in the corner, and Marvin would get him something to eat or whatever he wanted. And Marvin would play. He's putting that album together. And he said he looked up, and the next day that guy was there, and the next day the guy was there, and the next day he said, and all through the making of that album, that guy was there. And he said, then one day, when she had to make out the accounting of everybody who got paid, and she saw this name on there that she didn't know, and she said, "Who is this, Marvin?" And he said, "Oh, that's that guy that was sitting in the corner." And so she said, "But he didn't do nothing but sit in the corner." He said, "No, he did more than that. Pay him." I mean, he got that man's spirit, I guess, when he did that album, Trouble Man. Yeah, he's quite a guy. Real, very, very nice, very personable cat. Marvin Gaye. That album was fantastic, though, man. I don't know what. It's just every song was banging, and Berry Gordy didn't want that at that time. Berry Gordy, Marvin did most of that album, a lot of the music, playing of the drum, all kinds of stuff, because Dee Dee McNeil, who was with the Watts Prophets, was she was a contract songwriter for Motown when she was with us. So we knew kind of the inside of what's going on, but they didn't want that kind of. Motown was a middle of the road kind of thing. And Marvin was taking it way too out politically. And they really didn't want it. But Marvin said he was going to do it, and he did most of it by himself and with other musicians. But I think it was a great, great, great album. I don't think there's, I don't know another one except Bob Marley that, you know, I would really, I think Bob has some classics too. But that Marvin Gaye one, what's going on, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this. I love it. I love it.
And so again, we want everybody to check out Ebony Creole Whispers. This is what it looks like. If you don't know what it looks like, everybody needs to check that out. And get to purchase a copy. And if you haven't, you need to check out what's going on, right? Right, Marvin Gaye. And check us out on Good Friday. We wish you could join us, Father Amde, but you'll be with us in your word and in spirit as we share throughout the evening. And we'll be online and in person at the church.
I like to check y'all online, and I hope that you'll say a prayer for me.
We will, absolutely. We absolutely will. So it'll be 7 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay.
We'll be at the church, Inglewood First United Methodist Church in Inglewood as well. So, and this is an important time for us. We're collecting an offering. It'll be electronic mostly, but we're at the church doing an affordable housing development on the site of the church. Where our plan is with the city right now, getting feedback, but 60 studio units.
I sure hope y'all get it, man.
Yeah, 60 units to serve seniors who are houseless right now, as well as workers who'll be working the stadium and the arena. The goal is so that they don't have to catch a bus for an hour to get to work every day, but they can walk to work. Right.
Beautiful.
And so and building a community center on the site as well, so that we can do everything from music lessons to mental health services, nutrition classes, you name it, so that throughout the week, there's always a place to come and get hope and healing on site at the church. So the offering is going to help with the architectural design so that we can get that done and break ground spring of 2023. So
beautiful.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
All right. Well, I'm gonna be praying for y'all to be successful.
Thank you. Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you for doing this, Father Amde. I love you.
Love y'all too.
All right.
Love and power.
All right, y'all.
Or that we shouldn't try, or that we can't.
Sell them this.